when I was 14 years old. That's when I got hit with lightning.
Tonight, the story of a Yukon elder who defied the odds and endured the long road to recovery.
My daughter, for one, she said, Mom, she said they're going to be looking after your money now.
A story of one woman fighting red tape to get out from under the thumb of the public trustee.
The government system is all set up for genocide.
And supporters show their solidarity in the name of lives gone too soon. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. A warrior camp is being created at Queen's Park in downtown Toronto. They want to raise awareness about justice for Indigenous people in the province and across the country. Beverly Andrews brings us their story.
A sacred fire burns on the other side of these tents as people gather at this warrior camp in Queen's Park. Catherine Gandhi has been here for almost a week, showing her support.
Whether it be the Colton Boushie, the Tina Fontaine injustices, the injustices of the child welfare and also the judicial system and how we're overrepresented in those systems. So it was really a fact and point of the grassroots Indigenous women here to join in solidarity with the camps that are happening in Regina.
A camp at the Saskatchewan Legislative Grounds in Regina has been in place since February, after the acquittal of Gerald Stanley. Gandhi and the others are here to show their solidarity.
We also have very racist policies that are in place. Those policies need to change for us to be able to be equal with Canadians, because currently we do not have a fair judicial system, and we have our children that are continuing to be kidnapped by nonprofit corporations.
Great-grandmother Grizzly Mama says she's here to help fight the same battles she's faced her entire life.
The government system is all set up for genocide. It's not set up to help us to get ahead or help our people to live a healthy life.
The group hasn't made a request to meet with Ontario government officials, and no one from the province has come out to speak with them yet. For now, the camp is a gathering place for supporters.
Part of the healing that takes place within the community is really dependent upon the structures of Indigenous ways of being and living, and so that is why we're here on the land.
Beverly Andrews, APTN National News, Toronto.
A Winnipeg woman under the guardianship of the Manitoba Public Trustee Office claims she's only being given just enough money to survive. Martha Troyan and Ashley Branson bring us this.
I made some salad. You want some salad? It's fresh. Yeah? That's all I got.
Marie Whitford used to live confidently and independently in her one-bedroom apartment, but now she barely gets by on what little funds the province gives her.
They say that, you shouldn't be looking at it like, I'm not fit, to handle my money.
They refers to the Public Guardian and Trustee of Manitoba, a provincial government agency that's supposed to manage money of people who are unable to do it themselves because of injuries or other reasons. Whitford became a client of the agency after a fall from a dining room chair last September.
I was home here. I was sitting here in the chair. Then I fell down backwards, and then I hurt my neck,
which landed her in several Winnipeg hospitals. Not only does she feel she's barely given enough funds to survive from the trustee office, but she was never given proper notice that she'd be under their care.
My daughter phoned, she said, Mom, she said they're going to be looking after your money now.
Whitford was admitted into Grace Hospital, Health Science Centre, and lastly, Victoria Hospital, where she stayed in the mental health ward for a night, and to this day doesn't know why. That's when she recalls falling under the care of the trustee office.
I can't even use my bank card no more.
She doesn't recall signing any papers at the hospitals. APTN contacted a spokesperson from the Public Guardian and Trustee of Manitoba.
The only time the person wouldn't receive notice is if the application has been submitted to the Chief Provincial Psychiatrist on an emergency basis, and the person submitting the application is able to show that there is an immediate danger of harm to the physical or mental well-being of the individual, or there's immediate concern about dissipation of assets.
The spokesperson adds,
if they're in hospital, it's generally the social worker or somebody from the treatment team.
See, I bought some margarine there.
Whitford was only given $50 a week for groceries until her daughter complained to the trustee.
That's what I get from, I get this bread from food bank. My daughter told me, says, I think maybe you should give more than $50 because she needs other stuff too.
Now she receives $125, but she's still strapped for money. It's been months since she bought clothes for herself. Longtime friend Linda Pachinos has been helping Whitford whenever she can.
Linda, she gave me these pants here. Linda, she been giving me 2 pair of slacks.
Marie says if she wants summer clothing, there's steps she needs to take for the trustee office.
I got to price everything, mark everything on a paper, and then I got to bring it to them.
The trustee office says they can only manage a client's finances based on what their income is.
So if they've got very limited income, we have to budget based on what their income and expenses are.
Now Whitford wants her freedom back. She recently inquired with public trustee how she can be removed as a client.
Well, he says you just have to talk to your doctor.
The Public Guardian and Trustee of Manitoba says the client has to be assessed mentally to ensure they're capable of taking care of their own affairs.
So if a doctor does an assessment and is agreeable that the person has regained capacity, they just simply fill out that form, sign it, and send it to the Chief Provincial Psychiatrist, and he can, if he's satisfied with it, he can terminate our authority.
Now Marie Whitford has to wait until September to see a doctor, but remains hopeful that she will no longer be a client of the Public Trustee Office in the near future. Ashley Branson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
And we'd like to hear what you think about this or any other story. Here's how to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. Find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/APTN News. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. The odds of being struck by lightning in Canada is 1 in less than a million. But Shirley McLean brings us the story of one Yukon elder who survived a strike but faced a long and painful recovery.
It's a stroll down memory lane.
It brought back old memories when I was in the hospital here.
The last time Roger Ellis walked this street in the town of Mayo was back in 1964, when an act of nature sent him to the hospital for 2 years.
When I was 14 years old, that's when I got hit with lightning.
Ellis, along with his mother and sister, were living in a cabin with a sod roof in the small northern town. He remembers it being a rainy summer.
It was a really bad summer that year. Back in '64, it was lightning and thunderstorm for all of August.
And it was on one such afternoon Ellis and his sister stayed inside their cabin for the day.
And we were reading comics. And then all of a sudden, the whole house lit up like a million candle lights. There wasn't a shadow in that house. And it was like, bang, wow, what was that about? And then all of a sudden I felt my foot burning.
Ellis spent 2 weeks at the health clinic in Mayo.
So that doctor said, well, I'll be honest with you, he said, I don't know what's going on with you. He said, but your internal organs and stuff are shutting down.
Ellis found that any touch on his body caused him pain. He was then medevaced to Charles Campbell Indian Hospital in Edmonton, Alberta.
And I was screaming the whole way because it was so painful. And even on the plane too. So when we got down to the Campbell, I remember there was about 20 doctors standing around me. And they said, well, this young boy ain't going to make it, they said. And I just looked at him, I said, I'm too young to die. I said, get the F out of here. I was swearing at them, I was so mad.
Ellis says he was full of attitude back then because he was a survivor and he wasn't going to die alone in an Edmonton hospital.
I started breaking out in big blisters, and they had to pop them and then soak me in this Epsom salt. Oh, that was so painful.
Ellis says the emotional pain was just as painful.
The sad part was that they never told Mom nothing about me for the whole 2 years I was there.
He was determined to make it back to his mother. They were just rebuilding a relationship after spending a decade in residential school.
Never got to see Mom for 9 years. They told her lies and told us lies. You know, and they told her that we didn't want to see her. And they told us that they couldn't find her or she was on a drunk. You know, so they put us in foster homes, you know, every summer.
2 years later, Roger made it back home to his mother, free from the physical pain, but suffering from the mental anguish of being separated for so many years. It led him to drinking.
I'm here for a reason, you know, carry on my work. Yeah. Yeah.
And what work is that?
Helping other people on their sobrieties and stuff.
Today, the 69-year-old is sober and enjoys the smaller things in life, like cultural activities. He says the isolation he experienced at the hospital and surviving the odds of being struck by lightning has given him many tools to live by. Shirley McLean, APTN National News, Mayo, Yukon.
Quite a story. Well, the Prime Minister's Youth Council is calling on Justin Trudeau to cancel the purchase of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. More on that coming up after the break. Here's a look at Wednesday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. Rain and 21 in Halifax, 23 in Charlottetown and St. John's. Showers for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and a high of 22, 7 with rain in Nain. 23 under the sun in Quebec City, a sunny 25 in Montreal. In southern Ontario, 23 in Sarnia, London, and Peterborough. Warmer in the northern part of the province, 29 in Thunder Bay, 28 in Sioux Lookout. A wet day in parts of northern Manitoba, rain, and 28 for Norway, House, and Island Lake. 32 under the sun in Gimli Harbor, 30 in Winnipeg. Rain in many parts of Saskatchewan, including Regina and Saskatoon, where the high on Wednesday is 29, 23 for Buffalo Narrows and Stony Rapids. Welcome back. A marine research expedition is underway off the BC coast to explore 3 dormant underwater volcanoes that scientists say provide critical marine habitat. What scientists learned during the 16-day trip off Haida Gwaii could help the government decide if the region should receive designation as a marine protected area. And the Haida Nation wants tighter restrictions around the site because the undersea volcanoes are central to some of the nation's traditional stories. Joining us now by phone is Peter Lanton, president of the Haida Nation. President Lanton, appreciate you joining us. Can you tell us about what this expedition is? What are scientists looking to find exploring the dormant underwater volcanoes?
Well, the one that's of most significance to the Haida Nation is Skonkinklis. It's the Bowie Seamount. That falls within Haida territory. Is actually the place of one of our oral stories. We have many supernatural beings that live throughout the islands and were there before human contact. But Skonkinklis actually means a supernatural being looking outwards. So it's very significant in the history of the Haida Nation, in our oral tradition. But I guess in a more of a modern context, we've been co-managing the Skonkinklis, the Bowie Seamount, with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans for over a decade now. And so for us to actually have an expedition going out there is it's been a big undertaking. But also of major significance for it is we also have one of our own biologists on there. She's a young student that just graduated with her degree, and all these things are really exciting for us because we've talked about this this capacity that we need to have our own biologists that also understand our oral history. And you bring those two things together, I think it's history in the making, and it may sound a little exaggerated, but for us it's that important.
It sounds like it. Can you tell us what you hope might come out of this?
Well, I think it's just, this is, it's 180 kilometers off the coast of Haida Gwaii. So many people in the Haida Nation have never been there. And, and those who have been there come back with stories of, some of the unique habitat that they see. There's a lot of unique species that we know of out there. But with today's technology, they're able to use high-definition video. So just over the past weekend, we had a few live viewings here in the communities. You can actually tune in online to watch the expedition happening as they're underwater, looking at things for the first time. And so for us to have this something that's so rooted in our oral history, and also something that's the subject of us managing, we need the best data possible. So that's really the purpose of the expedition, is to go and gather this baseline data. It's going to help us make decisions moving forward on, from our point of view, is to increase the amount of protection out there. There's a lot of shipping traffic off of BC's coast, and they go in the vicinity of this area. So we just want to we want to verify what we already know, that this is a unique place on Earth. There's a lot of history behind it. We want to know what else is there, and I believe that history will be made. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they come back with some unique coral or something that's unique to just that area, and that's what we're hoping to see.
President Lanton, it sounds like some fascinating stuff. Looking forward to see what comes out of it as well. Appreciate you taking some time to be with us here today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
The Prime Minister's Youth Council issued a public letter to Justin Trudeau on Monday, outlining its opposition to the proposed investment in the Kinder Morgan pipeline expansion. One reason is that it violates Indigenous rights. Riley Yesno has been on the Youth Council since 2017. She joins us now from Thunder Bay. Hi, Riley. Thanks for being with us. Can you start by telling us why you support the Youth Council's opposition to the Kinder Morgan pipeline buyout?
For sure. So the reason why I stand in support with the PMYC and this letter opposing Kinder Morgan is because I support our stances as individuals and our ability as individuals to still share and express concern and free thought to the government as any Canadian youth is able to. And I think that while recognizing, yes, our titles do give us a certain extra amount of attention to sort of the perspectives that we bring and the opinions we hold, that doesn't negate our ability and our rights to share and our freedom to do so.
Riley, the council was created in 2016 to be a nonpartisan youth voice to advise the Prime Minister, but a youth member from Alberta, Sarah Wheel, says going public on this issue is showing a bias. How do you respond to that?
I would say that by definition that is incorrect, because there is a distinction and a difference to be made between being political and by being partisan. Being political is to influence legislation and regulation through government and public affairs, and partisan activities are a firm adherence to one party, faction, or an individual with partisan ties. And everybody who signed this letter has different reasons to do so. They have different party affiliations, they have different personal interests, so by definition that is incorrect.
You say there are those who dismiss the council's opinions as being ageist. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is once this was publicized on CBC, CTV, and other various media outlets, a majority of the comments that I saw that when people expressing disagreement with us were not necessarily because of the information we presented or our arguments. It was simply because we were too naive, too young, we didn't understand the real world, which is hugely ageist because we're only given that sort of interaction because we are under the name of a youth council. But by that, I think it's important to recognize that everybody on this council is over 18, under the eyes of the law and under the eyes of the Canadian state. We are all legally adults, just young ones. And also that to discount our credentials and our character and our qualifications is extremely unjustified. We have neuroscientists, human rights lawyers, mothers. We have people who are students and who have years and years of insight and expertise, and to do so is just simply kind of preposterous.
Riley, any response from the Prime Minister, or are you anticipating one?
We haven't received an official response from the Prime Minister. We have received, I believe, something from his office saying that they're glad to see that youth are sharing their voices and that they're engaged on issues in the political sphere. We are, I believe, planning to draft something as a youth council specifically to the Prime Minister at a certain later point, and I'm still not sure whether or not all members will be signed on to that or if that will be made public, but I do know that there's some action planned going forward, and we would anticipate some sort of response from him at that time.
Riley, we'll have to leave it there. Appreciate you joining us to speak about this.
Thank you so much for having me.
A pair of Indigenous musical acts are up for a prestigious prize. Details on that coming up after the break. Here's the rest of Wednesday's weather forecast. Picking back up in northern Alberta. Rain and 19 in High Level. Rain and 23 for Fort McMurray. 33 in Medicine Hat. Sunny and 30 in Lethbridge. The heat wave continues for the BC interior. 31 in Penticton, 33 in Kamloops. Sunny and 23 in Prince George, 23 and cloudy in Fort Nelson. Another cloudy day in the Yukon, 20 in Dawson City and Mayo. Over to NWT, 19 for Trout Lake, Fort Resolution, Wrigley, and Norman Wells. 0 is the high for Sax Harbor, 19 in Inuvik, 20 in Fort McPherson. In Nunavut, +7 in Whale Cove and Chesterfield. Rain for Cambridge Bay. 7 above on Wednesday for Pangertung and Resolute. Welcome back. The shortlist for the 2018 Polaris Music Prize has been released, and 2 of the 10 nominees are Indigenous. The $50,000 prize is awarded to the artist who created the Canadian Album of the Year. Selected solely on artistic merit without consideration for genre or record sales. Among the 10 nominees this year are the Snotty Nose Red Kids for their album The Average Savage. The Indigenous hip-hop duo from Haida Nation have written tracks about Standing Rock and opposition to the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. Jeremy Dutcher of Taweek First Nation in New Brunswick also made the short list for his album, Olastakia Lintyu Wakanawa. The album blends century-old recordings of his Maliseet ancestors and his own classical and pop influences, and it is something. Buffy St. Marie won the Polaris Prize in 2015 for her album, Power in the Blood. Tanya Tagak claimed the prize in 2014 for her album, Animism. Been listening to both albums today. They're both great. That's your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. We leave you tonight with some sights and sounds from a pop-up park across the street from APTN World Headquarters. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night.